Imagine an egg, utterly whisked by conformity before having its yolk inseminated by a spoon of salt. It's dumped onto a frying pan called dystopia to be confronted by the stove heat generated by the most extreme distortions of our human values. Dystopian composers portray characters suffocated by conformity to confront audiences on how adhering to social values can easily devastate an individual's self-authenticity. Consider Margaret Atwood's 1985 novel The Handmaid's Tale. The novel begins with a state of reduced circumstances for those who still have circumstances. It's a subtle euphemism to foreshadow the obliteration of women's self-authenticity smothered within the somber hues of a patriarchal regime. The Handmaid's Tale subverts the intrinsic social connection between individuals by using violent indoctrination to shadow one's perception of morality. Such use of violence as a method of compliance persists 3 decades later in Yorgos Lanthimos' 2015 film The Lobster. In the hotel, the fact that you'll turn into an animal if you fail to fall in love with someone pressures individuals into forging artificial monogamous relationships. It metaphorically criticizes how contemporary society's obsession for romantic pairings corrodes one's authentic selfhood by manifesting infatuation rather than love. Let's examine The Handmaid's Tale. Atwood glorifies women's sexual enslavement within Offred's regularly punctuated flashbacks by festering an oppressive conformity riddled with threats of cattle prods, barbed wire, and shipment to the infamous colonies. As we delve deeper in Offred's cynical point of view, it becomes apparent that these regular bouts of violent indoctrination are just Atwood's futuristic vision of the United States. Women's enslavement in Gilead represents Reagan's rising conservative office annihilating the advancements of second-wave feminism. It's no wonder these abused handmaids scramble for the vestiges of control, bestialized to treasure even the minuscule power of a dog bone. How else could you survive in this prison of surrogacy without cherishing the scraps of control discarded at you? It's toxic. You even begin to tyrannize those close to you. Offred's anecdote records Janine's gang rape testimony. She looked disgusting. Weak, squirmy, blotchy, pink, like a newborn mouse. None of us wanted to look like that ever. For a moment, even though we knew what was being done to her, we despised her. The imagery from this internal monologue divulges how the parasitic conformity breeds irreparable damage to one's morality. Have you ever felt longing pains of attraction for somebody as you swipe right on them? Was that affection even real? Lanthimos, director of the film The Lobster, isn't so sure. He argues that the online dating scene in contemporary society has over-glamorized finding your soulmate, resulting in a user base fascinated by chasing physical attributes rather than forging meaningful relationships. The hotel parodies the emotional disconnection found between online daters by distorting physical infatuation to extremes. The audience is consistently reminded that love in this society only kindles when individuals share defining characteristics. Such idiotic motif is undermined in the final minutes of the movie when the protagonist David pathetically prepares to blind himself just to rekindle his feelings of affection. Why would you do that? Perhaps the infliction of blindness or bodily harm for societal validation is just a dissonant value between characters and audiences. Or perhaps the deeper message is that we are so blinded by our societal expectations regarding romance, we don't even notice that we are infatuated and not in love. Let's return to the scrambled egg. Imagine yourself being in that position, battered, defeated, raped by a cruel spatula of conformity. The pan is now flaring, swallowed by flames of our distorted human values. Do you succumb, or do you cling futilely to the charred remains of your self-authenticity?